What's going on? Welcome back. Welcome back to another tantalizing episode of Off the Schneid. We're going to be doing a draft today, back to Best Ball Mania. The Puppy 2 is closed except for all the slow drafts, which probably are quite a lot out there. I'm in slow draft hell a little bit right now. Would have liked to have gotten way more fast drafts in. I think I'm at, 20 something, 23, 25, something like that, slow drafts. So I was just hammering drafts for the last 2-3 days, all day, just smashing them as much as I can. So we'll take a look at that for a little bit. We're going to look through the exposures, my exposures for, let's just look at it. Let's jump into it right now. 10% deposit bonus rolling on Underdog right now. That's nice. I'll probably take advantage of that at some point. But let's take a look at the exposures. So far, 173 pre-draft best balls, the big board, the biggest board, all of that. 162 so far in post-draft best ball season. Looking at 3 Dalmatians, 1 Greyhound. Those are max entered. 59 Best Ball Manias. We'll be doing number 60 tonight. The Poodle, 15. I have 5 slows for that. That's maxed out as well. 77 Puppy 2s. Those are all fast. I have, like I said, 20 something. I think I'll end up with a really weird number, 102, 103, something like that, which is really going to annoy me, but it is what it is. And then 7 Puppies. I did all those before the schedule was released. I wanted to wait till the schedule was officially released. I know matchups, blah, 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 but here we are. So I'm going to take a look at a few things. The overall exposure, and then maybe just my Best Ball Mania exposure. So there you see my main exposures on all my drafts, my 162 drafts. Good morning, Fantasy Football Garage. Good to see you. Thanks for coming out, Candyman. Yeah, we did draft last night. I went hyper fragile. Maybe we'll take a look at that one. I took a different route on that one, but we'll dig into this. So Ty Chandler, my number one. One thing I wanted to talk about with this exposure was I seem to have a lot of like too much exposure to certain players due to them being the bring back in a lot of situations. And Ty Chandler is one of those guys. So anytime I'm doing a Green Bay build, it's difficult to get Justin Jefferson or like a lot of times you can do it with Justin Jefferson for sure, but you're only getting him, 10% of the time roughly, when you're in your first round, right? And then with Jordan Addison, there's a lot of Green Bay Packers that go in that area. So it's tough to stack Minnesota Vikings with Green Bay Packers, but Ty Chandler's always there. Plus, I love Ty Chandler. I think he's going to be a very good, he's one injury away, and Aaron Jones is pretty fragile for me this year. Let's just take a peek at my Aaron Jones exposure. It's probably 0. Yeah, I don't have any exposure to Aaron Jones. Taking a pretty hard stand on that this year, and I'm going to stick to that most likely. I don't think that that's going to kill me. It's not like Breece Hall last year that did really hurt me. Starting about halfway through the season, I was thinking I was going to be right on that Breece Hall one, but either way, my 0% Tony Pollard made up for that one. But either way, he's just a bring back guy. So the other guy that I had in mind for this that I want to see is Jaylen Warren, because he's another bring back piece, only 14%, but I guarantee it's higher in certain tournaments. So anytime I'm taking Kansas City Chiefs, whether I'm stacking with Patrick Mahomes or double bring back with Warren with the Chief stack, or if I'm just bringing a game stack back in my 0 RB builds or even hero RB builds, he's a fantastic RB2, RB3, anywhere he fits on your roster realistically. So I kind of wanted to take a look at some of those guys, and Malachi Corley is one of them as well. So what my problem is with my own exposure on some of these guys is I have to start, especially with someone like Jaylen Warren, I have to start where it's not a bring back. And I'll talk about why I'm bringing it back with those players in a second. But I need to start adding Najee Harris more where it's not a bring back situation. So only 5% with Najee, 14% I think we said with Jaylen Warren. So why am I bringing it back with these players? Ty Chandler catches a lot of balls. Jalen Warren obviously catches a lot of balls. That's why I'm bringing it back with those running backs. I'll draft Jalen Warren over Najee Harris if I'm bringing it back on the Chiefs game stack week 17. So that's something I need to kind of pay attention to and keep an eye on. So let's dig into the quarterbacks first. Jared Goff, number one, tied with Trevor Lawrence. The dollar amounts are a little bit different. So maybe I need to add a little more Jared Goff in my Best Ball Mania portfolio, which we'll pull up separately in a second. And Josh Allen is 100%. I need to get more because you can get Josh Allen in the 4th round now. If I can get 4th round Josh Allen, I think everybody should be scooping up more of that because you can take him naked at the time. And a lot of times you might get a falling Dalton Kincaid, and you can always bring it back with Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. I don't need to tell you guys who plays for the Bills. So you can draft him naked and bring it back later on in the draft with a lot of those Bills. So I need to add more in my Best Ball Mania exposure. That's for damn sure of Josh Allen. That's something why I like to do these types of shows and take a look at my exposure to see where my gaps are, see where my holes are. And clearly Josh Allen is a huge hole for me in my Best Ball Mania, which again, I'll take a look at in a second here. Jaden Daniels, I think, is still going to be rising. Caleb Williams, I've started taking a lot more. Patrick Mahomes was not particularly on my radar enough because, you couldn't get the main stack options with him. But I've gotten creative, and actually Chris the Candyman there last night, we'll take a look at that draft because that was a way that I got creative with Kansas City with my hyper fragile running back room. But we'll show that in a second here because that's a good example of how you can get creative with Kansas City to kind of force it in there because I don't really love where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going. I don't really love where their ADPs are at. They don't match up. It doesn't make sense. It's tough to do. You have to very purposefully force it in. But if you can get creative in different ways, then it'll work. And again, I'll show you an example there in a second. Anthony Richardson, I like that. Joe Burrow, I need to add more exposure to, not just because I'm a massive Bengals fan. I think he's super undervalued, and he falls into the 90s. I've seen him into the hundreds before, which is absolute madness to me. So that's somewhere I got to add more. Will Levis, I'm happy with. Jordan Love, I've been trying to draft more, as you can see with the entry fees there. So there you go, a little bit there. Lamar Jackson, I definitely need to add a little bit more. Again, that's another guy that's tough. You have to force him in, maybe take him naked, maybe get creative. You might have to take a Nelson Aguilar share. You might have to get a lot more Devontae Walker, which I don't particularly want more than I have of. But again, you might have to get creative with some of these builds. So there's my quarterback exposure. Let's do quarterbacks with Best Ball Mania. So 59 drafts, Trevor Lawrence still on top, Jaden Daniels very high. I'm a huge believer in Jaden Daniels personally this year. Caleb Williams as well. Most of the time, these are my, I'll build 2 quarterback builds. Overwhelmingly, I'm, 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, overwhelmingly in my exposure. So I'll take these 2 quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, whatever. I'll take 2 of those quarterbacks, and then I'm good. I'm not typically taking a 3rd quarterback in those types of builds. Same with Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels. That's fine by me. Brock Purdy, Anthony Richardson, whatever. You get the picture. So that's kind of what I'm doing there. Again, my gaps, you don't even see Josh Allen pop up on my exposures in Best Ball Mania. That's a massive, massive gap for me, especially because you can be more or less set with Josh Allen as your quarterback and then bring it back with, Drake May, or I don't know who's another late round that's, Will Levis, Kirk Cousins, guys like that. You can bring it back late with a quarterback or just a falling value QB, something like that, where you're fine with that. It's not a problem because Josh Allen's going to be in your lineup, hopefully in your head, 17 weeks, or 18 weeks, or sorry, 16 weeks, 15 weeks with the bye and only week 17. Either way, you get the picture. He's going to be in your lineup. So I need to add more Josh Allen. That's for sure. Everything else I'm pretty comfortable with. couple shares here and there of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. That's another thing I like to do where, if I have Josh Allen, actually, there you go. There's a prime example. And I could maybe pull up a draft if we really want, but a prime example of Josh Allen where I draft Josh Allen early, obviously, 4th round, whatever. And then I bring it back with both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, where I stack up the Pittsburgh side of the Kansas City game, right? Where I get Jalen Warren, I get George Pickens, and then I get, call it Xavier Worthy, whatever, something along those lines. And then I double stack quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh quarterback. So no matter what, I'm getting the starting quarterback with Pittsburgh, and my other positions are stronger for that. My running back room, my wide receiver room. So I can go 3-5-8-2, right? And be comfortable if I, took a running back early as well. So that's another thing that I'm doing. As far as my exposures, I think I'm okay. I'm not really, besides Josh Allen in Best Ball Mania, maybe a little bit more Lamar Jackson, but beyond that, I think I'm fine. Typically with quarterbacks, you might have one, maybe 2 quarterbacks with over 20% exposure. It's just difficult to get to stack it up that high unless you really, 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 really believe in a guy, which, for me, I'm spacing it out. I'm stacking, I'm doing things like that. So, that's my exposure with my quarterbacks. Take a look at the chat. Putt Daddy, what's up? Always happy to see you in the chat. Appreciate you coming out, man. Jason Calhoun, thanks for coming out. Like the avatar. Is that Itchy, I believe? Or is it Scratchy? Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. So much out in the past few days in 4th and even 5th. Yeah, I'm thinking missing injury news or something. No, that's it, right? Like it gets a little crazy in the puppy 2 streets. Sometimes guys are just in there clicking buttons, it seems, and it can be pretty frustrating when you get sniped and stuff. But quarterbacks are just all falling. All quarterbacks are falling right now, especially these pocket passers. No, it's my high school mascot, the Huron River Rat. Is that Lake Huron? Are you in like Erie or something like that? Ohio must be, but either way. So let's jump back into this. I'll pop over to the chat again. Thanks for popping in, guys. Appreciate it as always. Let's go to running backs. So Ty Chandler, like I said, I'm actually fine with that exposure. 28. He's my highest owned player, period. I'm a big fan of Ty Chandler. I'm going to keep it around there. I'm fine with 30% Ty Chandler. Braylon Allen, I've started hammering late in drafts, trying to stay ahead of that curve. He's obviously going to be the direct handcuff. He's a guy that I very much believed in coming into the NFL draft. So I should have been hitting him earlier when he was completely free, 18th round type of thing, because he is moving up quite a bit. But it is what it is. It's better to be, late than not get not catch the bus at all. So I'm happy that I've started adding it. As you can see from the dollar values, it's mostly in that puppy 2 that I just started smashing him. So I need to up that in Best Ball Mania, I would imagine. Again, we're going to take a peek in a second here. And then Tank Bigsby as well. Some of these running backs, it's because I do so many like hero, two early RBs and, 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, call it 1 running back, 0 running back, that sort of a thing. And I'm bringing it back with all of these guys that you see here. Pretty much everyone on the list here is who I'm bringing it back with my RB2, RB3, and some of them RB4 or 5, and even 6, Tank Bigsby, RB6, Eric Gray, who I have too much of, but I wanted to even it out with my Best Ball Mania. So most of this has come down quite a bit, because I have drafted them less, but I wanted it to be relatively in line with my Best Ball Mania exposure, which I will absolutely have to and need to bring down, which I will bring down. And we'll see in a second. You can tell by the dollar values that there's too much exposure in Best Ball Mania, but we'll get there in a second. So Chase Brown, another guy that, I do as not necessarily a bring back, but that's where I go. If I'm drafting a naked Joe Burrow, which I'll do all the time, if Joe Burrow's going to fall to a certain point, I'm just going to take him naked. And then I can bring it back with Chase Brown. You got Jermaine Burton, you got Mike Gesicki, and then the Denver Broncos are always easy to get. So, I like Chase Brown as a standalone as well. So he's my RB, 2, 3, 4 all the time. But again, if I'm taking a falling naked Joe Burrow, I'll jump all over Chase Brown. And I'm doing that pretty much every single time I get that situation. Zach Charbonnet, that's another guy that's a massive bring back option because typically it's tough to get DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, even Tyler Lockett, because the running backs in that range are just so plentiful and, juicy. It's tough to, unless you're planning on that Chicago stack, which might not come to fruition until later in your draft room, right? So I'm using Zach Charbonnet a lot. He goes at about 130, right around the 130s, early 130s. He's a massive bring back option for me. So is, Noah Fant, which I need to mix in more as well. But either way, same thing, Jaleel McLaughlin. So a lot of these guys, I take naked, I take as a bring back, I take stacked. You get the picture. Bucky Irving, he's more or less kind of the last guy with, Braylon Allen in the picture as well as the last running back that's viable. Even Tank Bigsby, that you can realistically say, I'm very confident that this running back is the RB2 on his team right now in June 26th. I can say that this player is the RB2 on this team, right? Those are the last kind of three guys that you can take and be comfortable with that statement. And Bucky Irvin might even have some upside depending on how you feel about Rachaad White, who I have 0% Rachaad White this year. I was probably the most, exposed drafter to Rachaad White last year. Huge believer. This year, completely off him. Similar with Cortland Sutton. Completely off Cortland Sutton, 0% Cortland Sutton, but I was very, very high on him last year. So that's another thing that I like to do. Don't chase last year's stats on fragile players, right? Fringe fragile players. Why are we chasing stats? That's kind of how I see it. Either way, James Cook is there, Jaylen Warren. As far as, where I need to, let's actually just go to the Best Ball Mania exposure here, where we have Eric Gray way too high. I brought that down a bunch. Whoops, I didn't apply yet. There we go. Yeah, way too high, 32%. I won't be drafting Eric Gray for the next month at least. But I wanted that, 19%, whatever I was at in, overall. So I wanted my Puppy 2 exposure to kind of mirror where I want it to be for Best Ball Mania. And then hopefully, I'm right about Eric Gray. I have been mixing in a little bit of Tyrone Tracy, especially when it's, a bring back option. If I'm stacking Indianapolis, if I'm stacking the Colts, then I'll bring it back with Tyrone Tracy instead of Eric Gray because I want that game to be a shootout. I want that pass catching back, right? I don't want, it's similar to the Jaylen Warren conversation. Obviously, Ty Chandler's still exceptionally high. I'm fine with that. I'm actually okay to keep it there, and I'll keep clicking him. As long as he's available in the type of builds that I, so commonly do. Chuba Hubbard, again, he's actually moving back up draft boards, which is good because he deserves it. Again, especially if it's, fragile type of builds, or you have a guy like, it's not a good example, but let's use even Tajay Spears. Let's use Zach Charbonnet, Chase Brown, Roshan Johnson, guys like that you're hoping hit later on in the season. Chuba Hubbard might just get you there until they start playing at a more frequent clip, right? So that's a big reason that people are starting to get back on the Chuba train, I believe. But we'll see. We'll see how it's still a little high for me. Still a little high, 32%. I'd like that to be around 20 to 25 roughly. I mean, I'm 60 drafts in. I still have a ton of room, 90 more drafts, 91, including the one tonight, to kind of correct this, which is why, again, I like to do these exercises. Same with Isaac Guerrero. I haven't drafted him in a month or two. This is way too much. The reason I liked Isaac Guerrero, because I think he's going to be returning kicks 100%. And I think we're going to see more kick return touchdowns than ever before in the history of the NFL. Not that he's going to score enough kick return touchdowns to make him fantasy viable, because, he's not. But I also thought that there was an opportunity for him to earn the RB2 role with San Francisco, which is a coveted, kind of spot. So if he had those two kind of, breakout options, which still might exist, we'll see when camp opens and who's running with the ones, twos, blah, blah, blah. But as it sits right now, I got to be pulling back on Garendo. So Eric Gray, Isaac Garendo, I absolutely have to, and I will be pulling back on those two for my Best Ball Mania exposure. Beyond that, I'm happy with everything else I'm looking at face value here. Roshan's okay. I think that's a touch high, but that's okay. Kamani Vidal, I'm happy with that. Devon Achan, I'm happy there. So if I can keep these numbers kind of looking like they are right now, I'll be fine. Maybe a little Blake Corum. I haven't been a huge believer in Blake Corum, but I think I got to click that name a lot more. One draft, 1%. I really think I need to kick that up a little bit. Same with Isaiah Pacheco. Mixon, maybe not. I'm okay with where I'm at with Josh Jacobs. Maybe a couple more shares, get it to 5 to 8. But other than that, I think I'm okay. Maybe Jonathan Taylor. Either way, it's more my bigger focus and my bigger concern is who am I overexposed to, and that's Eric Gray and Isaac Garendo. I'm way overexposed to those two players, so I have to do what I can to pull those back. And again, I will be doing that, so I'm not super concerned yet. But let's take a quick peek at wide receivers. Terry McLaurin, love me some Terry McLaurin. I think that this is going to be a career season for Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry is going to absolutely eat in that offense, in my opinion. I do wish that Jaden Daniels would stay in the pocket a little more. But as long as Terry McLaurin is the number one read, then I think we're okay. Plus, I like Jaden Daniels' deep ball ability. So I'm happy with my Terry McLaurin shares. Debo, love me some Debo. I wonder why that dollar amount's so low. I must not have him as much in Best Ball Mania. We'll see in a second. But I think Debo's getting habitually disrespected by ADP. I'm taking him over Brandon Ayuk almost every single time. If you look at their kind of overall points last year, they're almost, the same, 210, 215, something like that, right? Debo missed like 3 games and he was playing injured for a bunch of the season. So with that rushing touchdown upside and the rushing yards that he gets, I'm all over Debo. I don't really know why people aren't. Plus, especially if Ayuk's a little bit disgruntled, not that that's going to benefit him to not play as hard as he possibly can, because I've talked about that a few times on this show where, he's going to have to earn this contract that he's after, and he's going to have to put up the stats to earn it. So he should be motivated, if anything. Malachi Corley, too high for me. I need to pull that back a little bit. He's just, again, that bring back option. Like I talked about a few minutes ago, he's a solid Buffalo Bill bring back option when you're not getting Breece Hall, you're not getting Garrett Wilson, obviously 2 first-round picks, right? So how do you bring it back with the Buffalo Bills? If you didn't start with a Jet, then, Malachi Corley. A lot of people are taking Ty Conklin, but I personally think that Jeremy Ruckert's going to eat into his work a little bit. I like Jeremy Ruckert, and I think the Jets do too. Conklin's still the better, option, and he'll get more run and he'll get more targets. I get all that, and I agree with all that. But I think that Jeremy Ruckert's going to start to eat in a little bit. I think they're going to want to get him going because he's the future at tight end for the Jets. It's not Ty Conklin. So, and this is a guy that loves. I like Ty Conklin. I shouldn't say love. I like him, but I'm not drafting him a ton. Jameson Williams, another guy that you can use as a bring back with the San Francisco side or stack up Detroit. I have a ton of him. Nuke Hopkins, love me some Nuke Hopkins. He's one of my favorite all-time wide receivers. I think he's phenomenal. I think he can absolutely still get the job done. So I love me some Nuke Hopkins. Curtis Samuel, I think I need to pull that back if I'm not stacking with Josh Allen. He just goes in that weird range where there's like 4 wide receivers, Jameson Williams, and I'm not taking Cortland Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Lockett's in that range, right? And he's typically my click. I think I need to maybe pull back on that a little bit. Jahan Dotson, fine with that with my Jaden Daniels exposure. I like that. Probably too much Jalen Tolbert, I would imagine, but I'm taking him a lot as a, again, not typically as a bring back on the Philly side, but my double stack on the Dallas side, I'm taking him, and probably too much. I'll probably pull him off my naked, last round wide receiver list, which Javon Baker is in, and I have kind of pulled back on him a ton. I'm happy about that. I did a good job of pulling back, and he's probably higher in my best ball mania. Love me some Brian Thomas. Roma Dunze, I think, is fine. Jermaine Burton, Gabe Davis. You see everybody there. Who do I need to add some more shares of? I like the George Pickens, right around 10 to 15%. I'd like to maybe bump that up a little bit more even. Cooper Kupp, I've started to slow down on. I'm unsure about Cooper Kupp. I don't think that Cooper Kupp's going to be the guy that wins you the league, that wins you Best Ball Mania 5 this year. I really don't. So I think it's fine to be where I'm at, about 12% roughly. Maybe I could add more. And I did have more shares of Cooper Kupp. I pulled back on him as he rose. If he falls back to where I got my shares of Cooper Kupp, then I'll start clicking him more again. But I think I'm fine with where he's at. Ricky Pearsall, like that. DeVonta Smith, I'd like to add a little bit more, but I kind of missed the boat where he started rising. He used to be in the mid 30s, early 30s. Now he's going late to, mid to late 20s, early 20s even. Garrett Wilson, fine with that. First round pick. I'd like to get some Rashee Rice clarity, but I'm sure we all would. Drake London, I should probably bump that up a little bit. Monroe, I'd like to, but he's a first rounder. It is what it is. So same with all these other first round guys. Did a good job of pulling back on A.T. Perry. Let's take a look at near the bottom here. Anyone I need to pull up? I do need to get more Justin Jefferson, but I have started clipping away at that. Malik Neighbors might be on that list as well. Mike Evans is certainly on that list. I need to click his name a little bit more, but that's another guy that I'm just concerned about chasing stats, right? If we look at what he did last year, compared to the year before, but I guess you could say that that's what he is now with Baker Mayfield, right? Like this is what he is with Baker Mayfield. We could say that, but he's another year older, and he's not getting discounted for this age cliff. Like it's weird that Mike Evans was more disrespected when he was younger than he is now. Now he's being inflated, which is weird because he's always been this guy. Like he's always been this guy. He's always been that guy. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Absolutely, Mike Evans right now. But, he's obviously got a few more years and he's going to maybe push Jerry Rice, which no one pushes for a Jerry Rice record. No wide receiver pushes for a Jerry Rice record, period. And Mike Evans is on the cusp of that. So I do need to click him a little bit more. It would be kind of begrudgingly. Like, I love me some Mike Williams. I've always been a Mike Evans defender and just stan. But now his price is to the point of where I thought it should have been, years ago. So now that he's there at this age, I'm kind of like, I don't think it makes tons of sense. But again, we could just say that this is the Baker Mayfield edition of Mike Evans. I just heard today on Sirius. I work in my truck a lot, so I would listen to NFL radio. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had the same amount of red zone targets last year. Let that sink in. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans had the same amount of red zone targets in 2023. How many touchdowns did Chris Godwin have? 3, 2, 3, 13 for Mike Evans, right? So I think if you're watching tape and you're, obviously Baker Mayfield's the one throwing the passes, he's going to realize who catches those balls. Who catches the ball, who doesn't. Who gets in the end zone, who doesn't. It's Mike Evans. That's where I'm going to start focusing even more potentially, right? So either way, that's a guy that I think I need to click more, just purposefully make it happen. Just close your eyes, click the button, and get Mike Evans a little more exposure. Like I have more Jalen McMillan, who I think is the handcuff to Chris Godwin. So if I don't really like Chris Godwin, which I don't, and I do like Jalen McMillan, how am I not clicking Mike Evans? Obviously cost, plays a huge part in this whole thing. But either way, I need to click Mike Evans a little more. That's kind of the bottom line there. Fine with Christian Watson. I'm taking some shots because I'm not just taking him off my list. Marvin Harrison, I clicked a few times in the puppy. I still have an exceptionally hard time clicking him in Best Ball Mania unless I'm matching him with Puka Nacua, which we'll see. And if Cooper Kupp falls back down a little bit to where he was before, then I'll start clicking him and matching him up with Cooper Kupp in that week 17 game stack. And I'll probably stop there a lot of times without bringing in Kyler, without bringing in Trey McBride, things like that. But we'll see. Michael Pittman, tough click where he's going. I think it's tough for a lot of people, but his ADP is still up there, so someone's clicking his name. Casey Washington, there's a deep cut. That's all in puppies. That's not one Best Ball Mania, but I will be adding a few shares in Best Ball Mania for Casey Washington. If you don't know the name, now you know. Go take a look into him. He had a massive, massive bowl game, 200 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, had a really good pro day. He got drafted where the wide receiver 1 on his team did not get drafted. He did get drafted, had a great pro day, like I said, and he's been showing out at Atlanta mini camp and OTAs. He's been showing out, started with the 3s, 4s, whatever you want to call them, moved his way up to the 1s and 2s. So we'll see what happens with him in camp. But it's pretty ambiguous wide receiver room outside of obviously Drake London. Darnell Mooney's there. Yes, I get it. Former 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL. He can do it. He's shown he can do it. I get it. But Casey Washington, if you watch the show, for a little while, last year, I was screaming for this team to get a slot receiver. Go get yourself a slot receiver. I was saying Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow last year on the Atlanta Falcons, I think would have been a quality get for them. And maybe that guy is now Casey Washington. We'll see. But I have been clicking him a little bit, and I think I think people should just keep an eye on him. We'll see what happens in camp. That's where I'm at with them. Dontavion Wicks, I'm all right with that. Pop Douglas, that's the guy I need to click more. Supposedly he looked really good at camp. I didn't dig in enough on him. I need to click his name a little more. This is all on puppies. T. Higgins, if you watch the show, you know how I feel about T. Higgins. Xavier Gibson, nice. Couple clicks there. I like that. Adam Thielen, one time. Cool. Let's go to Best Ball Mania. Take a quick peek here. So Corley, way too high. I need to stop clicking him. I need to just kind of, relax on Malachi Corley. Even if I'm trying to bring it back, maybe still don't click him. I don't know, because I need to add more Josh Allen. Yeah, so there you go. Terry McLaurin, happy with that. Javon Baker, need to pull that back. Gabe Davis, Debo's up there. That's good. Okay, Gabe Davis might be a little high. Xavier Worthy might be a little high. A.T. Perry is certainly too high. I'll be clicking him 0 times probably for the rest of Baseball Mania, unless we get some serious positive news in camp. Jalen Tolbert, I got to pull back. So that's more important to me when doing this exercise is who do I need to stop drafting? Who do I need to stop clicking outside of, where it's absolutely necessary, in my opinion? And this is a good exercise to go through. Corley, Baker, Worthy potentially, Tolbert, Perry. I got to stop clicking all of these guys. Brian Thomas, I like that. Neighbors, I like that in Best Ball Mania. Yeah, everybody's good here. Who's not getting drafted enough? DK, who have started clicking more. Waddle, maybe. Addison, Jaden Reed, Devontae Adams. I've clicked. So Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, it's a very similar conversation right there. I need to be, getting Mike Evans up to my Devontae Adams exposure at least, right? Stephon Diggs, I'm fine with that. I'll probably be right around here. I'm not absolutely massive on him. I'm higher on Tank Dell still this year. And, again, begrudgingly a little bit Nico Collins than Stephon Diggs. Garrett Wilson, maybe click him a few more times, add him with my Josh Allen, right? But that's going to be super exposed. I get it. Tons of people, but it might not matter. It might be like last year, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, where you just have to have that stack, right? Even though I've clicked Stephon Diggs more than Nico and Dell, that's interesting. So that's good for me to know. CD, obviously I'm not getting 1 or 2 overall very much. Same with Christian McCaffrey. We didn't see it all. Not getting 1st and 2nd overall very much. That's fun. Calvin Ridley, probably click him a little bit more. And let's take a quick peek at these tight ends. Take a quick peek. and then we're jumping into a draft. So Sam Laporta, Schultz, Njoku, Kincaid. Mike Gesicki is a guy that I started bringing in as my second tight end in a 2 tight end build. Only if I'm getting like Laporta, Kincaid, McBride, who's fallen down a little bit, which is fine. If I'm getting one of those 3, because that's my 1, 2, 3 this year for tight ends. It's not Mark Andrews. It's not Travis Kelce. If I'm getting one of those 3 tight ends, I'll bring it back with Mike Gesicki as my number 2 tight end and stop there. There's been a lot of positive buzz, a lot of positive news out of the Bengal camp about Mike Gesicki. Dude's an athletic freak, and Joe Burrow can put the ball wherever he wants. So if you can go up there and get it, which Mike Gesicki absolutely can, then he's worth drafting for sure. Jake Ferguson, click with Dak Prescott at the end of 9-10 or something like that. That turn, it's an easy click there, right in the 80s. Kincaid, I'm happy with, and Njoku, I'm happy with. Cade Otton, I've started bringing on a lot more. My exposure in Best Ball Mania is probably too low, and I probably need to bump it up. But let's take a quick peek at that. Hunter Henry, maybe a little more. Brock Bowers, probably more. Let's take a look at Best Ball Mania. So Brock Bowers for sure I need to bring up in Best Ball Mania. Hunter Henry I need to bring up. Everyone else is okay. Cade Otton I need to bring up for sure. Jake Ferguson is fine. And then everyone else is fine. I'm happy with that exposure in Best Ball Mania. But a couple tight ends. I don't think I'm overexposed to any tight ends because these are all the top tight ends. The 3 of the top 4 of my exposed tight ends are the top 3 for me. So I'm fine with that exposure. And then Schultz and Njoku, Ingram, Kittle, Ferguson, all 2 tight end type of build tight ends. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's take a look at that. I like it. I'm happy with where it's at. Let's pop over and take a look at this draft I did last night with the Fantasy Football Garage. So I haven't named any of these in a while, which is good. Need to get on that. But this is a bit of a hyper fragile, running back build that I did with that Kansas City Pittsburgh stack. So in round 1, I went Breece Hall at the 8 hole, which is just an easy click. The top 8 for me are pretty much set in stone. Maybe we'll see AJ Brown overtake Breece Hall. We'll see. But I'm fine with this being the top 8 and take them in kind of whatever order you want to. And then AJ Brown, then everyone else sort of a thing. Saquon Barkley in the 2nd round, and then Derrick Henry fell to 32. So I went 3 straight RBs. So all the 0 RB bros are coming after me. I typically do, I don't do many builds like this. So I wanted to get a little bit different. And then I brought it in with a naked Patrick Mahomes. So 0 wide receivers the first 4 rounds. A little bit crazy, but I think I landed the plane pretty well. So then Xavier Worthy I brought in with my next pick, and Rashee Rice, obviously the stack with Patrick Mahomes. So my double stack with Kansas City, what you could easily say might be one of the most potent offenses in the NFL this year. Jameson Williams was just the last guy on the board besides Keon Coleman and Cortland Sutton, who I'm not drafting. I'm not drafting Keon Coleman at that ADP either. I'm going to need him to fall into the 90s, a lot closer to where Curtis Samuel and even Khalil Shakir are going before I start clicking Keon Coleman too much. And Cortland Sutton is pretty well off my board this year. So Jameson Williams brought that in there for another, game stack that I like in week 17, which I'll get to in a second here. Jonathan Brooks, another running back. And now I'm done. Why was it Jonathan Brooks? I don't draft him a crazy amount, to be honest with you, but I think it just made so much sense with these 3 running backs that I took early. And then, I'm not going to need Jonathan Brooks for the first 8 weeks. I really don't care. And, he could sit out half the season, and I should be fine with these 3 running backs, especially because I believe off the top of my head, they all have late bye weeks. 14 for Henry for sure, 12 for Breece Hall, and I want to say 9 for the Eagles, but either way, they have late bye weeks. So I'm not going to need Jonathan Brooks to show up until halfway through the season. So I'm happy with that. And then I'm completely done at running back. So then Khalil Shakir comes in. I like that. It was basically just, him or Rashid Shaheed. I just needed another wide receiver. I needed bodies, and I think I got a pretty good one. I like Khalil Shakir a lot. Brandon Cooks. Any bringbacks there? Yeah, bring it back week 17 with Saquon Barkley and another wide receiver that I need. Pat Freiermuth, start my bringbacks on the Pittsburgh side with my double stack KC. So happy there. Ricky Pearsall, stack him up week 17 with Jameson Williams. Happy with that. Baker Mayfield I bring in. Again, naked Baker Mayfield. I bring him in the 13th round as my QB2, and now I'm done at quarterback. And yeah, another naked quarterback. So anyone that's drafted Mike Evans or Chris Godwin's like, this motherfucker just stole my quarterback. What's he doing, right? Same thing with, Patrick Mahomes. What's this guy doing? Then I go Kate Otten. Boom, boom. Just double stack there or double tap there, right? Bring in Kate Otten. And now I'm okay at tight end. I don't know if I grabbed a third or not, but we'll see in a second. Roman Wilson, my second piece of my double bring back. Huge discount too. That's 20 points, almost 2 rounds of value on Roman Wilson. So that was nice. Plus another wide receiver, double bring back on the Pittsburgh side of week 17 against Kansas City, which I have a double stack of. Jalen McMillan, double stack Baker Mayfield. There you go. Happy with that. And that also with the bring back Jonathan Brooks. Sorry, I forgot to mention that one. So Jonathan Brooks in week 17 against Tampa Bay. Then I did bring in Jelani Woods. It was supposed to be Mike Gesicki, but I got sniped on that. It is what it is. I'll bring in my, third tight end to round out my room. Bye weeks don't match up on my tight end, so I'm happy with that. Finish it off with Elijah Moore, who stacked up with guys week 15 and 16, I think, but not week 17 because I missed out on Mike Gesicki. But that's the way I went. So it was a 2-4-9-3 guarantee. That's the only build I have with those numbers, like that construction. But stacked up, looks good. I'm happy with this build. I thought it was an interesting way to build kind of hyper fragile wide receiver, bully running back, whatever you want to call it. And I wanted to try it. I'll certainly try it a few times. I want to have a few of these builds in my portfolio. I'm not just going to be 0 RB 100% of the time, hero RB 100% of the time, dual running back, whatever they call it. I'm not going to just structure my portfolio the exact same. You got to get different sometimes, get some different kind of combinations and, see what works. So I like that. I kind of killed it with volume. I maybe could have went with a 10th wide receiver instead of Jelani Woods, but I thought that might have left me just a little fragile in the tight end room. So that's why I added in that third. But either way, that's just an interesting way you can do that. So I thought I'd touch on it because Chris brought it up in the chat. So appreciate that. Let's check out the chat again. Ann Arbor, Michigan. Nice. I knew you're in the area. Makes sense. It's just around the corner, Ohio, right? We're in a puppy on the other night. I wanted to take Chuba because I knew you're going to, and he did. Yeah, man, I'll take him. If people are going to let him fall, I'll take Chuba Hubbard, especially if I'm sitting there with 3 running backs or even 4 running backs and Chuba Hubbard's on the board. You best believe I'm clicking Chuba Hubbard. So there you go. 10 straight seasons, 1K for Mike Evans. He's only the second wide receiver to ever do that. The other, Jerry Rice, and he's closing out. I think Jerry Rice's record was 13 maybe. 13 or 14 seasons straight of 1,000 yards or more. And Mike Evans is on the brink of that. So I hope he gets there. Regardless, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. So yeah, we'll see how that career ends up. But Super Bowl ring, first ballot Hall of Famer, all of that. So let's jump into a Best Ball Mania. If you're in the chat, you want to draft, jump in. We're waiting on 10, tons of room. Waiting on 9, tons of room. If you're in the chat, or hit that like button if you don't mind. Hit that like button, subscribe, all the good stuff that helps the streamers. Appreciate everything. So hit that button for me. Maybe we'll do a second one if we get to, I don't know, There's 40 people watching right now, which is an all-time record for me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for coming out. That's an all-time viewer record for me. Appreciate it. If we get to, there's 40 people. If we get to 15 likes, I'll do a second Best Ball Mania. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think. Let me know if I'm being unreasonable or being crazy. I'll even like it myself to make sure we get there. And I'll rip a second Best Ball Mania. Still waiting on 5. We're at 4 likes, guys. 4 likes. I think we could do a little bit better than that. But we got some time. Waiting on 5. I always want to be top 8 in these drafts. I always want to be top 8. The MySpace style, top 8, you know? Just because I think it's so like set in stone. And then I can worry about my exposures of those top 8. Unless I'm at, 11 or 12 and I can get the old Puka and Marvin Harrison Jr. that I'm just so desperately want to get a share of and Best Ball Mania. And I believe in the chat, Chris, Fantasy Football Garage, I believe you got that last night in that draft. Did you not? I believe you got that Puka and Marvin Harrison Jr. stack. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, good on you. What did we get? 7. Perfect. 7's even better because then you guarantee yourself Bijan Robinson. So 7's even a little bit better than top 8 or being 8th, if you will. Jason, appreciate you. Hit that like button. Takes 2 seconds. Quick little slap on the like. Helps me a ton. Cost you nothing. Appreciate it. We got Jason in the 10 spot. Let me know if you're in the room. No Bo Sox. I've drafted with him for sure. Huron River Rat. I've drafted with you before, 100%. Absolutely, we've drafted before. Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate that. That's it, I think, that I know. That's it. Good mix of badges, no badges. So you never know. Could get really interesting. Could get really salty. We'll see. We're far enough away from each other, Jason. I don't think we'll snipe each other too much. You bet a few drafts with you, I believe, for sure. Both got the old red badge, so I'm sure we've crossed paths before. That's for sure. Probably most of the red badges. Some people just have more, memorable names than others. Huron River Rat, I would see that and probably remember it. So I'm very confident we've drafted together. But easy click here. 10% Bijan. I'm not gonna bring up Breece Hall over Bijan here, even though my exposure is a little off. I really don't care about that because you can get Breece Hall. I've gotten him in the 11 spot. I've seen him go in the second round, early in the second round. So Bijan's not falling past 8. That's for sure. So I'm happy to just keep crushing Bijan Robinson shares if I'll continue to get him where he's kind of going. So we're looking at 6 likes, 9 more, and we'll do another BBM draft. So if you're on the Twitter machine, log into YouTube, hit that like, pop in, say hello, help a brother out. If you're subscribing or just subscribing, you should probably hit that notification bell. I go live a little bit sporadically, typically Wednesdays, like tonight, same time. It's always going to be 9 in the East. It's 7 p.m. for me where I live, so it works out nicely. But it might be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes on the weekends, Monday, whatever. It can be pretty sporadic, but it's, once, twice, up 1 to 3 times. 1 to 3 times a week I go live. So appreciate y'all. Hit the like, hit subscribe, and let's rip some drafts. We'll be doing this all summer. I only do content in the off season for me, there's really no off season to NFL, but I only do content in the off season. My life just gets too busy with work during the season to try to do content. It just gets way too hectic with my professional life. So it is what it is. If I could do this for a living, I would, but here we are. That's why you got to hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? But started with Bijan. I do like to bring it back with Devontae Adams. This is the Spike Week overlay, by the way. If you've seen it, you know what you're looking at. If you haven't, then that's what it is, which is great. Shows me my matchups weeks 15, 16, 17. Shows my exposures. It's a fantastic tool, I think. I don't get paid by Spike Week or anything. I actually paid for this tool, obviously. So it's just a little free promotion for them. I just really like the tool, but we'll see. We'll see where it lands at the end of the season here. We'll see kind of how it looks, how I do. I might try another interesting build. Maybe I get a little fragile with Saquon, with Bijan Saquon. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. And some of the opponents match up. Obviously, Washington week 17 for Atlanta, Washington week 16 for Saquon. Didn't mean to make it tick so long, but there you go. Little fragile. I probably won't bring in a third running back in this unless, I don't know, if Devon Achan's there at 31, I'll take him. Oh, there he goes at 19. That's an interesting start. Amon-Ra, Devon Achan. That's actually an interesting start. Kind of like that. That's probably pretty rare. Earlier today or yesterday, maybe something like that, I got Justin Jefferson and Drake London. I thought that was a really unique kind of build. It's in a slow draft, so we'll see how that kind of shapes up. Nothing crazy. No one getting out of line yet. That's good to see. Achan went a little ahead of ADP. This is a classic where, I don't know, again, maybe it's something that you need, but CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith play week 17. So that's going to be really, really common. It's always interesting what the Christian McCaffrey drafter does. That's always interesting to me. A lot of times I'll do DK and DJ Moore. They play each other week 17. So a lot of times I'll add those two. Obviously, I prefer going with two wide receivers if I'm taking Christian McCaffrey first overall. But you can get creative. You can do some different things, obviously. You could bring in Sam Laporta, match him up for week 17, bring him up. But he used to go higher than he is now. Now he's at 35. It's a little tougher to bring him up. But I still do it on occasion. Just to mix in that exposure to the week 17 game that might be the game that you just kind of need, right? I'm drafting that game a lot like it's the game that you need. So, and I think that's a okay strategy. Those are two of the probably highest scoring teams in the NFL this year. They're projected to be, right? Shared that on my Twitter the other week. There was somebody put in some work on that and going off the over-unders that are projected right now throughout the season. They kind of put it together and took a look at who would be the highest scoring teams in the NFL. And those two were in the building. So 31 and 42. I know where I want to go with my 42. For 31, I'd rather take a wide receiver for sure. 19% Cooper Kupp in Best Ball Mania. I'd like to bring that down. I'm definitely not clicking Stephon Diggs. Let's go Tank Dell because I want to bring that up a little bit. And it gives me an out potentially later. And it is a game stack that I don't mind. Yeah, at home against Miami, week 15. I like that game. And then, week 17 at home against Baltimore. I definitely like that game. A lot of people do. To be honest with you, I still am kind of in the camp that I like Tank Dell the most. Even more than Nico Collins, more than obviously Stephon Diggs. Listening to some interviews and some stuff that CJ Stroud was saying about, like, he was talking about his dream offense of anybody in the NFL. His slot receiver was Tank Dell. Obviously, that's a little biased. That's his teammate. That's his guy. They both came in as rookies. They were crushing it early in the season last year. So it could certainly be biased, obviously. But, that does say a lot. That does say a lot because he didn't pick Nico Collins as his outside wide receiver. So I think that says a lot. A little bit of agua. No beers tonight. Maybe next week. Travis Etienne, that's a guy that I have 0% right now. Travis Kelce. Maybe I'll do next an episode of 0% share guys. That'll probably get me, booed off of the Twitterverse or the YouTube machine. But I don't really care. I do take some fairly hard stands. And the way I feel about it, as long as I'm more right than I am wrong, then I have to be okay with it. As long as I'm right more often than I'm wrong, which I think I have been. Keep me honest. If you've seen some episodes or that I'm not or whatever, then let me know. Absolutely tell me I'm talking shit and completely lying, but I'm pretty confident that I'm typically more accurate than I am wrong. Terry McLaurin's where I'm going here. Obviously stacking up week 16 and 17. But love me some Terry McLaurin. Probably should slow a little bit down on him, but I think he should be going over Amari Cooper. I think he should be going over Christian Kirk. I think he should be going over T. Higgins for sure. I think he should probably be going over Michael Pittman. Probably over Stephon Diggs. So, and he has been rising. He was around, mid 50s. Now he's in the late 40s. I could see him by the end of the season. By season, I mean draft season, Best Ball Mania, hot Best Ball summer style. He'll probably be low 40s, maybe high 30s. Like, to me, he's a third round pick. And you're getting him fourth round consistently. I have some shares of him in the fifth round for sure. Obviously, if he's going mid 50s, maybe I even have some 6th round shares. I'm not sure, but I think he's very undervalued, especially with how much I like Jaden Daniels and his rushing upside. But we'll see how that shakes out for me. And I just really like the week 17 game stack with the new and improved offense that should be the Atlanta Falcons. With mostly because of their offensive coordinator is the biggest reason why. So Jane Reed, 43, that's a bit of a reach, I think, isn't it? I think that's a bit of a pull up. Shouldn't call it a reach, just is. Yeah, 11 picks, 12 picks. That's right on the fringe, right on the cusp. It's a little much for me. Not sure that's completely necessary, but okay, get your guys. So that's kind of stuff some badgeless guys can do where the structure doesn't particularly make sense. I guess if you like him over, I wouldn't fault you for saying, taking him over Amari Cooper. I personally wouldn't fault you for that. For some reason, I just hate Amari Cooper. I just don't like him as a player. God knows why. I really don't even know. But Christian Kirk, I can't get behind that. I'd rather have Christian Kirk than Jaden Reed personally. But I guess I can understand the sentiment there. So we'll see. Here on River Rat, Jason takes Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins. See how that plane lands. I like this. Obviously, the wide receiver room super, super strong. Tyreek, Waddle, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, obviously stacking up week 17, Miami, Cleveland. Looks like I'm on the clock. Should have been paying more attention. But I'm going to go with Hollywood's not a bad click here. There's my next selection, 66. Hollywood's not a bad click here, but I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts and see how this shakes out a little bit here. Doubling up on my Atlanta. A lot of times the Drake London drafter, obviously the ADPs make sense. They match up. The Drake London drafter will go with Kyle Pitts, which is typical. It's pretty common. Don't mind that. I like doing Bijan with Pitts as well, and that's also quite common, right? But the way I like to do it is a little bit different, and we'll see how that kind of shakes out for me. Dalton Kincaid goes not to the Josh Allen drafter, but Breece Hall, obviously in a bring back there. Oh no, he took my Pitts. My bad. I like Kyle Pitts. He's kind of obviously I could have taken Kincaid over Pitts. I do have Kincaid ranked over Pitts for sure. I would say Kyle Pitts is probably my tight end 6 as far as like what my rankings would say, but I think his upside, and everybody knows this, and that's why he's drafted where he's drafted. His upside is, top 3 tight end for sure, top 5, no question, right? So is he ever going to hit that potential? Still remains to be seen, but I think we all think and know that that's his kind of ceiling, right? It's just a matter of him finally taking that step to get there. So we'll see, but we'll see. A few more likes, and we're doing another Best Ball Mania. So hit that like button for me. We're at 46 people watching, new all-time record. There's got to be 15 likes in there. We're at 6 already. There's got to be 15 likes in there, guys. Come on. Definitely going to be looking wide receiver here. They're flying off the board as they typically do. Jalen Hurts naked. Oh no. AJ Brown. I was going to go with Worthy. That's who I was trying to push there, was either Hollywood or Worthy. It wasn't very likely that they were going to get to me. But I honestly, with Jason, with the Huron River Rat there taking Drake London, I thought I had a better chance at pushing wide receiver, one of those 2 Kansas City wide receivers, than Kyle Pitts in this situation, and in most rooms, to be honest with you. As long as you think the Drake London drafter is a quality, intelligent drafter, then it's always kind of on the table. So you got to kind of watch that. I'm going to bring in Rashee Rice in this build. Am I? I am, because it's ticking down. Oh, geez. No! Sometimes with this Spike Week tool, it kind of sticks. It doesn't register your queue, and then it does, and then it doesn't. And I just got autoed Rashad White, my first share of Rashad White that I did not want whatsoever. That's a real kick in the nuts, peeps. Now I really got to figure a way to land this plane. Oh, that's frustrating. But it's on me. That's on me. Should have clicked the guy in my queue a lot earlier. That's on me. That's a real kick in the nuts. At least my bye weeks are okay, so I can stop at 5 probably. Oh, that's really upsetting. Let's see how I got to get creative now. Now I got to get really creative with this. Oh, no doubt. For sure this team is the team that makes the final with Rashad White. Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be the guy you need week 17 to win me Best Ball Mania 5. If that happens, I'll get as many Rashad White jerseys as possible. I don't know. That would be crazy. This is going to get interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to land this plane. I like my 2 wide receivers, but man, it's going to be fragile. So now I got to get really, really, really creative. I feel like I don't like Keon Coleman at all at this price range. And there goes Williams. I'm glad Jameson Williams is gone. Let's go Jake Ferguson. I have to make sure I only have 2 tight ends in this team. And running backs are fine. I'd rather in this, like it's either Coleman, I really reach for a wide receiver that I don't particularly want at all, right? Or I just take my second tight end and call the position good. He does match up with Tampa Bay and Philly, so that's, something. So we're going to get a bit of either this is going to go completely sideways or it'll be a masterclass on how to land a plane with a pick and a player you didn't want. So we'll see. Wish me luck on this one. Maybe it's a naked Joe Burrow type of a build where I can go QB there. Yeah, I could do that. Otherwise, it's almost certainly Dak. But Joe Burrow could be on the menu. This is just such a running back heavy spot in the draft. It is wild. End of 7, start of 8th round at the 7-8 turn. That's just where you take your RB2. So Burrow is behind, says Huron. Says Jason. Yeah, you got T. Higgins. That makes sense. Right at ADP. There you go. Yeah, I'm obviously going to be taking Dak Prescott here to pair him up with Jake Ferguson, but I would have taken Joe Burrow if he fell to me. Samson. I want to talk to Samson. I assume that's what he's getting at, but yeah, Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett's on my radar in certain builds, and I guess you could say that this is one of them, but I'm going to go Dak Prescott here, pair him up with Jake Ferguson, week 17 stack with Barkley. I can always bring in, Brandon Cooks or Jalen Tolbert, but I have way too much Jalen Tolbert, so I won't be going that route. But Brandon Cooks could be on the table. We'll see. Man, I hate that Rachaad White is on this team. That's terrible. I second guess myself because there's almost certainly going to be Rashee Rice suspension coming down the line. And I wanted to match him up with KC week 16, but then I got all scared about the impending suspension for Rashee Rice and being too fragile at wide receiver. And now look at me, hyper fragile wide receiver, completely by accident. But ugh. And then I had to just go zero wide. Oh God, just such a soft range in the draft for wide receiver. Super, super hyper fragile, soft range in the draft if you need wide receiver. That's why everybody talks about the wide receiver avalanche. I get it. It does make sense. It is a thing, and it will always be a thing until ADP shift, or if they do shift, right? So, yeah, man, that's frustrating. It is what it is. Yeah, this could be it too. So that's why I should have just clicked it. Honestly, I think if any suspension happens 2025, the courts do the thing. Don't see if he'll jump in the traffic. Yeah, I agree. And the smack in the mouth for the photographer that was bugging him at the nightclub he shouldn't have been at. That's pretty much a nothing burger, realistically. I don't think that's going to really, it just doesn't look good because of what he just did. That's why he shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been at that nightclub. You shouldn't be putting yourself in those situations when you just did something a little stupid. And then just a week later, he does the same thing. So, or something, you could say is potentially worse. But Still not going to take another wide receiver. So I'm going to go Jaden Daniels here because I got the double bring back in Atlanta. But now I'm done at running back. Or sorry, now I'm done at quarterback. Now I'm done at tight end. So let's see if I can land this plane at the wide receiver. Just hammer it with similar to the build that I showed you earlier with that draft I did last night, that Best Ball Mania I did last night. See if I can land this plane. I'm going to have to get really creative with this stupid auto click Rachaad White that should have never happened. First share. You're right, though, Jason. Hopefully this ends up being the guy that wins me this entire, 1.5 million. You never know. Against Carolina, it's not a bad team to do it against, 150 yards total, 3 touchdowns. Let's go, Rachaad White. Make it happen. He does pair up with Dallas, in week 16 as well. So that's, I guess, the little saving grace, little nugget I could take out of that. But either way, it's a horrible auto click. That's on me. It is what it is. Can't blame the tool when I had them queued and then unqueued them. It's just silliness. But either way. Here on River Rat, James Cook, I like that. Jordan Addison, David Montgomery, solid high floor play, makes sense with your running back room. Same with Brian Robinson, that's a great click. Joe Burrow, I love it. Pairs it up with T. Higgins. That's a solid draft. Obviously, you know what you're doing with the red badge. Not that badges mean a damn thing. I always say badges don't mean shit. They don't mean anything. I saw a red badge take 4 quarterbacks 2 days ago. It's nonsense. And it was Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts were the 3. And then he took another one, Purdy or something like that. So badges don't mean anything. But typically you think that they should know better in certain situations. And typically they do. But here we are. Definitely got to certainly be thinking about wide receiver here. That's obvious. Brandon Cooks is there. Not a lot of crazy amount of correlation. Could be a Jacoby Myers click. This is something that you can see sometimes when you put yourself in these situations like I have, is sometimes you can get some wide receiver falling value. Like I showed in the pre-show there in that draft I did where I got Roman Wilson. That's perfect. I wanted Romeo Doubs here. So I'm just going to try to eat up value where I can as long as I like the player, and I like Romeo Doubs. So I got almost 2 rounds of value, almost 20 picks of value on Roman Wilson when I put myself in a similar position, but I did that on purpose. This I didn't do on purpose. Then sometimes in those types of rooms, you'll see falling value at wide receiver, which is exceptionally rare. So hopefully, maybe I'll see that. That's my fingers crossed hope and goal here. I don't know if I need to go with 5 or I can just keep it at 4 running backs. With Rachaad White being as, I don't want to call him fragile, but I didn't want to make the pick in the first place. So I think I probably will have to go with 5 running backs and then 9 wide receivers, I think is where I'm at with this. We'll see how it kind of levels out, but I think I'm kind of doing the best I can to land this plane. But it's going to get pretty interesting. Raheem Mostert is probably the most disrespected running back this year. Having said that, I also have 0% Raheem Mostert. So I'm not chasing those stats from last year. Again, that's another guy. I was a huge drafter of Raheem Mostert last year. One of the biggest supporters probably out there of Raheem Mostert at his cost, at the opportunity that I thought he had and he did get, and he ended up being a smash. I just don't think it's there for him this year. I don't. I think, he's going to get his touches. He's going to get his, unless he gets injured or up until he gets injured, because he is a fairly fragile back. The injury risk is always there. And he's 32 years old. So I just I have a hard time clicking him, over a guy like Brian Robinson. Tony Pollard, I think, is a value. But either way, is anybody getting out of line with like 3 quarterbacks or anything crazy? Not that you can't do 3 quarterbacks, but 3 quarterbacks by, round 11 is a little aggressive if you ask me. This guy obviously went Jordan Love to bring with his reach on Jaden Reed. I'm okay with that. It's nothing crazy. Brings in Austin Eckler. Obviously, I'll be bringing in Jahan Dotson. I really like. This is probably my favorite game stack right now is Washington Atlanta, and I love doing this double stack, double bring back. Jaden Daniels with Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. Bring it back with double Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. I think that's a really, really cool game stack for week 17. Especially because you're getting the like high-end options in that game on both teams, realistically. I'm not a huge believer in Ben Sinnott. I think he played a lot of like H-back, fullback type stuff in college, and he wore a fullback number, which says a fair amount to me. Obviously, he'll change that to a tight end number, and he'll get more opportunity. But Zach Ertz didn't come there to just sit on the bench and do nothing, right? So, former Cliff Kingsbury, I guess disciple, knows the offense, whatever you want to say. But either way, I think it's going to funnel through the wide receivers, a lot like the LSU offense did, right? With Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, very similar, very, very similar options. Mind you, neither of them are 6'4", 210, run a 4.3 like Brian Thomas Jr. But, Terry McLaurin is habitually underrated. 4 straight seasons, 1,000 yards, and this is, I don't even think you could argue, but this is the best quarterback he's ever played with, I think. Maybe not this year, 100% this year, but I think Jaden Daniels will be, the best quarterback that Terry McLaurin's ever played with at some point in his career, at some point soon in his career. So I'm done at quarterback and tight end. That's for sure. Definitely don't need Darnell Mooney. That's way overkill on that game stack. What Green Bay Packer Dobbs? That's right. Took Romeo Dobbs. Kendry Miller would fit. Mind you, by week 12, I'd rather not that it matters, but I'd rather not overlap. I could take Jerome Ford here, and that leaves the door open for 4 running backs. I think that still might, I don't think it does, actually. That's still a little too fragile for my liking. Wow, by week 14 for my wide receivers, I got to just keep an eye on. I could do one more, no problem, but there goes Jerome Ford. I'm going to have to go Gabe Davis here. I'd rather not, but I kind of have to. I got to catch up. A little bit of value, half round value. I got to catch up at wide receiver. Did I miss Corum news? Slipped 18 spots. He does slip a little bit. No, if anything, it's been positive news for Blake Corum. He's, I think Kyron Williams said something about Blake Corum eating into his role a little bit from something I heard on the radio today. No, I think he's just been sliding a little bit. I got him in the, what was it, like 150s? Yeah, 18 spots, about that, something like that the other day. That I think was the only share that I had of Blake Corum, where I got him super late, so I just had to click his name. But I do want to start clicking his name a little more and purposefully, right? So, yeah, can't pass up Corum at value. I actually really don't love Corum, but he's good in that offense. Like with if Kyron Williams can do what he did in that offense, Blake Corum could potentially be even better in that offense. I will say that. But I didn't really love Blake Corum as a prospect, to be honest. being a between the tackles type of a runner at his size, that's not necessarily going to fly in the NFL, I don't think. But again, in that offense, fuck, anything's possible. If Kyron Williams can do what he did in that offense, I think Blake Corum could do that and a little bit more in that offense. So, yeah. On that team, he's a smash at ADP, let alone later. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's a fair statement because, yeah, I don't love him, but everything I just said is, yeah, it's all true. Like, that's exactly slot role remains intact for Adam Thielen. Cool. Yeah, just what I said. If Kyron Williams can do what he did, Blake Corum could do more, I think, in that offense. So we will see. We will see on that one. Still a lot of options at wide receiver here. I'm not upset at all with how this is kind of turning out. Jermaine Burton goes. Sorry, Jason, I would have taken him there on you as well. But in this situation, I am going to bring in Roman Wilson. I'm going to bring in Roman Wilson. Might be a touch of a reach. Might not be completely necessary here. 0% Nick Chubb. I'm off the Chubb myself. Vidal with Greg Roman and alt pick. Yeah, I was looking at Vidal, but I didn't like it with this room. I was looking at Vidal. He was certainly on my radar. J Cam, thanks for coming out, by the way. Appreciate that. I was looking at Vidal. Yeah. He was my first look, to be honest with you. But I think I got to get there with wide receiver before I worry too much about running back, to be honest. Yeah, I do need to finish up my running back room if I want to stop at 5 or thinking I need to get to 5 is how I should actually word that. Because I do think I need to get to 5 running backs. I don't think that this is strong enough to stop at 4. If I, like I showed earlier, if this was Derrick Henry, if this was Devon Achane, even Kyron Williams, something like that, maybe I could be comfortable stopping at 4. And I probably would, like I did with that other example. But I don't believe in Rachaad White enough. I love Bijan and Saquon, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, I think I need to get to 5. Oh, you're talking Corum comp. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And he plays on third downs, which, you could say J.K. Dobbins will or would, but Gus Edwards is most certainly not playing on too many third downs at all. So, wow, Nick Chubb is still there. Hey, 22 picks past ADP. I don't think I can quite click him yet, but I mean, if I took my first share of Rachaad White, maybe it is a good time to take my first share of Nick Chubb. Yeah. That's not the worst plan in the world, but I just don't think I can or want to make that happen. Bateman's on the board for me with a couple stack options there. Chuba Hubbard is certainly on the board. But I think I'm going to go with a guy that I need more shares of. What do we have for likes here? Hit that like button, guys. 52 people watching the show. That is a major all-time record. I think my highest was 20-something. So thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button. We're going to do another draft, another Best Ball Mania, if and only if we get to 15 likes. 52 people watching. I think we should. That's pretty reasonable. I don't think I'm being, I don't think I'm out of control here. Let me know if I am. Let's go Rashad. No, let's go Pop Douglas. Like I was just saying, that's a guy I need to draft more. I'll worry about correlation later. Not too concerned. We're at 6 likes still, guys. 6 likes. That's sad for how many people are watching, but it is what it is. Pop Douglas, 7 wide receivers. I think I'm landing this plane. I think I'm doing it. That's my last bye week 14 wide receiver. I won't take another one. 4 is fine, but it's enough. So my next probably 2 wide receivers will not be week 14 wide receivers. So Jason, if you need a week 14 wide receiver, you got him. I agree with this. Not hitting like buttons, like going to someone's house with muddy shoes and not taking them off. That's how I feel right now. And I'm wearing a white shirt. Getting mud all over my shirt, man. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate everybody, whether you hit the like button or not. I appreciate you guys coming out, showing love. Really appreciate it. But if we want to do another draft, all you got to do is hit that little thumbs up. And we'll get it going. So, done at, let's see what Jason's been doing. Brian Robinson, love it. Chase Brown, yep, stack it up, makes sense. Jerry Jeudy, he stacks, I think, one of the weeks, week 15, no, week 16, sorry, I think, is where they play the Bengals. Yeah, because they play on the road. Interesting thing about the Browns. Here's an interesting little nugget about the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs this year. They don't leave Ohio. The Cleveland Browns play 2 home games in weeks 15 and 17, and then they go to Cincinnati in week 16. So 3 straight home games. That's really nice. Not home games. 1 game's on the road. I get it, but it's in state. They drive, I'm sure. Maybe a quick flight, right? Half-hour flight, maybe. But they sleep in their own beds. I guarantee you that. Maybe one night they don't. Whatever. Either way, they're not traveling. That's a little nugget about Cleveland there that maybe not everyone knows about or is looking at, but it's an interesting little nugget. Blake Corum, way past ADP. I love that. 130s. That's where I got him, was 130s, not 150s. That's crazy. Adam Thielen, probably past ADP. I'm not a huge Adam Thielen guy, but I would have rather Wandale personally, but that's fine. Ray Davis, that's very quality click. Where are we at here? Should have been paying more attention. So McCaffrey, pretty easy click for me with what I'm doing here. One of the last viable options here is Braylon. Love me some Braylon Allen, and I'd like to get my Best Ball Mania exposure up too. So happy to click him here. Which makes it tough sometimes to take Tyreek, but I still do. Yeah, cold weather Tua. Is that what we're worried about? Also, another nugget, a weird one. The stupid shit that I look into, which is hopefully why you come and watch this show. But another thing about Cleveland, they had a record December in average temperature last year. So maybe that transfers over again this year, and they have a relatively warm December in Cleveland, and it's not as cold as you may think for cold weather, poor little cold weather Tua. But yeah, it's another interesting little tidbit. Uncle Ted, appreciate you coming out. Kamani Vidal. Yeah, man. Kamani Vidal. Should have clicked him a while back. Are you watching on delay maybe? I maybe should have, but that's okay. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm still going to get, 5 running backs that I'm, comfortable with. At least comfortable enough. But I think I've really landed this plane at wide receiver that if I really wanted to, I think I could do 8 wide receivers. I don't know if I'll do that, but I feel like I could get away with 8, to be honest with you. Tank Dell, Terry McLaurin, Romeo Dobbs, Jahan Dotson, Gabe Davis, Roman Wilson, Pop Douglas. Should get potentially, a flex spot or 2 for my tight ends, maybe. No, I think I'm all right. I think I have to go with the 9 wide receivers. I think I have to. I don't want to take an unstacked kind of correlated piece here. I'm going to go DeMarcus Robinson as long as he's not week 16, which he's not. I'm just going to try to take some points here at wide receiver. He does play the Jets with Braylon Allen. That's kind of redundant. Doesn't really matter. But I think it makes sense to take him there. So 2 picks left. I'm looking at probably a running back and a wide receiver. Potentially just a running back. Like, I think I can get away with this room. It's super, super close. Super close. I think I could get away with this wide receiver room, but I do think that it's still a little too fragile. I think it makes more sense to pick a 9th wide receiver than it does, because, Bijan and Saquon are going to be hopefully in my lineup every single week, those 2 running backs every single week. And then the odd Rachaad White kicks in on bye weeks, right? None of these bye weeks match up. And maybe Braylon Allen kicks in a time or 2, right? As long as I don't take a bye week 12 running back, then I should be able to make this work. I could have taken Devontae Walker there. That would have worked out. There's tons of options here. Jalen Hyatt is on the board. Greg Dortch is on the board. Elijah Moore is there, but I think I'm fine with his exposure, but I don't want to get too much more, to be honest. Malik Washington could be on the board. A.T. Perry is off the board completely. Trey Tucker is actually a guy that could be in play that I need to get some exposure to a little bit. Maybe I have some slows going in the puppy too, so I might pick him off a time or 2 just to get a little bit of exposure there. And same thing with Best Ball Mania, but I guess I could wait on that. There's options there, and there's less options at running back. So it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Give me some correlation here for week 17, week 16, 17. I'd like to get this exposure up to, 5 to 8 roughly. I think, again, he's that clear number 2. I think there's no doubt about that he's the number 2 running back. And the way that Pacheco runs is dangerous for injury risk. Very, 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 high injury risk with a guy that runs and plays the game the way that Isaiah Pacheco does. He runs the ball like he's mad at the ground. Like, it's pretty interesting. But so I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be sliding up the board, considering the offense that he plays in, obviously, and that he's the clear RB2. Like, look at what happened to Braylon Allen's ADP once we found out, okay, he is the RB2 in this offense. He is the Jets running back 2. What happened to his ADP? Kind of skyrocketed. We know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the RB2 in Kansas City. We know that. So why is his ADP so low still? I don't have an answer for that. So the answer is mix him in a little bit more. That's kind of my thoughts on it. We're at 7 likes, 8 more to do another Best Ball Mania. There's 52 people watching right now. If you're watching on Twitter, fire up your YouTube, hit that like button. We'll do another draft. But I'm a man of my word. And if we don't get to 15 likes, we're going to cut it off. Almost, hour and a half episode, long episode anyways. But if the support's there to do another draft, we'll do it. We will do it. I'm a man of the people. Trey Tucker's on the board, but I think I'm going to be going Greg Dortch unless he gets taken. Some correlation week 17, week 15. Little Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, or Demarcus Robinson. Demario Douglas, that's Pop Douglas's real full name, but you get what I'm saying. So Trey Tucker goes. Maybe he's listening. Maybe he's watching. Nice pick. I like that. I got to mix in some Trey Tucker a little bit. I have him a fair amount in the pre-best ball, pre-draft best ball, so big boards and stuff like that. I took a fair amount of him because he's just a big play guy. Suppose he looked really good in OTAs and minicamp and stuff. So I need to click him a little bit more. We're just discounting him and taking him off the board because we don't like the quarterback situation. But we're okay with second round Devontae Adams. We're okay with Jacoby Myers, kind of where he goes. We got to give him a little bit of love. He had a good quality rookie season. Right there with Trey Palmer with the Buccaneers. They almost had like a mirror, image of their rookie seasons. So those are two guys realistically that I drafted a fair amount of in pre-draft best ball that I would like to pick off a few shares here and there of those guys. Obviously, if Jalen McMillan didn't get drafted to the Buccaneers, then I would like Trey Palmer, a fair amount more and kind of where I liked him in the best ball or the big boards and stuff like that. So we'll let this wrap up. Then we'll take a quick peek at the team. The teams. I gotta update or refresh the screen, I guess. That's fun. All right, let's take a look. There we go. So Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, bye weeks don't overlap, obviously. I like that. That makes sense. Figured that out. I like that room. I'm happy with that. Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, interesting start, kind of different. Wanted to get different, forced myself to get different because I took an auto pick, Rachaad White, that I didn't want. First share I have. It's annoying. It is what it is. But I think I did okay. Braylon Allen, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, bye weeks are fine as far as having 5 running backs. So I'm happy with that, I guess. If I could be happy with taking Rachaad White, then I guess I'm happy with that. Where I'm really pleased with myself is I feel like I landed this wide receiver room as best as I kind of could, and got some nice value in a few spots. So that helps, obviously. Tank Dell, basically right at ADP. I'm happy with that. Terry McLaurin, ahead of ADP, but I love me some Terry McLaurin, and he's going to be probably the number 1 wide receiver on this team. It's just going to be a volume thing. Romeo Doubs, he could be the wide receiver 1 on that team. Had a career game in the playoffs last year. So I like Romeo Doubs probably more than a lot of other people do. But I got some good value on there, almost a full round of value. So I'll scoop that up when I'm in a situation like this. Then Jahan Dotson to double stack with my Terry McLaurin. Gabe Davis, we got some value, half a round of value on Gabe Davis. So you got to kind of scoop up the falling wide receiver value when you can, when you're in a position like this. So if you do this fragile wide receiver type of builds, or if you do these type of builds, typically you do it to yourself on purpose. I kind of, screwed myself. But I think I did okay. And then Roman Wilson, couple picks ahead of ADP, that's fine. He stacks up with some teams that I'm focusing on. Demario Douglas, got my first share Best Ball Mania of Demario Douglas, so I'm happy to get that. I'm going to get some more shares of Pop Douglas, that's for sure. Demarcus Robinson, again, just think gets me a higher floor week to week at this fragile wide receiver room. So I think that's a quality pick on a half round of ADP value there. Not that it really matters when we're this late in the draft, but I'll scoop it up when I'm in this position again. And then Greg Dortch to finish it off. I like that. Another potential high floor guy, should be in the slot this year, finally full-time for this team. Has a good relationship and good rapport with Kyler Murray. I like that. Kyler Murray doesn't throw the ball super deep too often, at least certainly not accurately. He's a bit of a dump off type of a guy. He throws a lot of, tight end screens, things like that. So I'm happy to pick up, and he correlates with a couple wide receivers, late round wide receivers, right? So I'm happy with that. I think I did a good job landing this wide receiver plane, to be honest with you. So I'm happy with that. Then Kyle Pitts and Jake Ferguson stack up with Dak Prescott. Only single stack Dak Prescott. That's fine. Realistically, in the week that it matters, that everything will, hopefully culminate and matter, week 17, I'm completely focused on the Washington-Atlanta game, obviously, right? So I just need, Jake Ferguson and Dak Prescott to get me there. And if they do, wonderful. I'm 100% bought in, completely focused on the Washington-Atlanta game in this build, right? So I don't mind. I didn't want to force, a Brandon Cooks who went, before I had a chance to pick him. Either way, where was it? It was, right here, or where were we? Right here, right before me. This guy took Brandon Cooks. That's interesting. Maybe Samson. Samson, are you watching the show? You kind of did a few things that I was talking about there. So either way, took him before I had a chance at 114. I most certainly wasn't going to reach on him at 103, right? Where I needed this quarterback anyways. So it's fine. I wouldn't have taken Brandon Cooks if he was there. I wanted Romeo Doubs, and that's where I got him. If he was gone, I guess I would have taken Brandon Cooks, but I given the option, I got the guy that I wanted. So yeah, I didn't want to force it. And Jalen Tolbert, I wasn't going to take late in the draft. It just doesn't make sense given my exposure, and that it just doesn't matter. And then Trey Tucker there, that's what I mean. He took a few guys I was talking about, so that's quality. Ben Sinnott, we talked about. It's interesting. And I had Washington. That's like three guys that he took. Samson, are you watching the show? Like, I could have taken Ben Sinnott for the stack. Trey Tucker, I was talking about. Brandon Cooks, I could have taken for the stack. Jerome Ford, I was talking about for potentially stopping at 4 running backs, right? It's kind of crazy. I was talking about Keon a little bit, but I wasn't going to take him anyways. The reality is I wasn't going to take any of the guys that, I was talking about here. But that's kind of interesting. That's interesting. Sometimes you see people and it seems like they're just out to get you. They're just sniping you on purpose, but not that he was, but I'm just saying. What do we have for likes? If we're at 15 likes, we're doing another draft. If we're not, we're calling it a night. So let me take a peek. Let me take a peek at what we're doing for likes. Still at 7. That breaks my heart. 51 people watching. Obviously, there's a lot of people watching on Twitter, which I absolutely appreciate. So thanks for coming out, guys. Thanks for showing up. Setting watch records for the Off the Schneid YouTube program. I appreciate that. If you can, hit the like button, comment, anything. DMs are always open. Shoot me a message. Hit that notification bell, maybe more importantly, because I do go live a little bit sporadically. Typically, it's at least 1 to 3 times a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are the most common. A lot of times on the weekends, I'll have a couple pops. We'll rip some drafts. But like we always say, we'll wrap it up. Like I always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be right. Hopefully tonight we backdoored our way into 1.5 million in Best Ball Mania, but I doubt it. We'll see. Either way, thanks for coming out, guys. We'll see you on the next.